Hey, Armin here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills. Appreciate you joining us very much, whether you're watching or listening. Thank you for doing so today. We've got another great show for you and kind of piggybacking, I think, off of last week, but we'll find out more about that. We're going to be talking about how Armin changes up his back workouts. And yeah, I'm kind of interested about that, that's for sure. And then we've got, of course, your fan questions and topics that you want to talk about for this week. So let's get started. We got, like I said, a great show for you. And, Armin, changing up your back workouts sounds like a little bit of a spinoff of what we did last week about your chest workouts last week. Is that right?
Well, last week we did stretching in between sets, but the week before we did the chest workout one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. The stretching. Okay. So it
yeah,
does sound really familiar.
it
Is it
is.
a lot of the same information, or are you going to twist things up here for us?
Well, it is a similar concept about how I approach things. And I found the strategy to be very effective, especially for my back development. So I think that, like the other one, there should be some good takeaways that you can relook at what you're doing and change it up. So I think there's some good takeaways on this one, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. Why don't you tell us what your approach is for training your back?
Okay, so like we talked about with the chest, I like to focus on different areas of the back. And so what this means is one workout will be based on creating, more width of the lats, which with that, I'm going to be doing pull-ups, pull-downs, and even a combination of those exercises to get as much full range as possible. So I'm trying to make the back wider from the front and
Okay.
from the rear. So give you those bow up like a cobra kind of look, or bat wings, as they would put it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a focus. And then the on the other focus is going to be the thickness of the back. And so that's going to be
Okay.
mostly row movements. And there's a lot of things to understand about these different strategies. So we're going to get into that for you, but it's really that simple. One workout's focused on lats being wider, and the other workouts are being focused on thickness, making the back thicker to get more again depth separation into the muscles from the rear. So
Okay. Well, why don't we talk about the lat width focused? Tell us how that works.
so so what you're going to be doing there is you're really going to be using the exercise that help widen the lats traditionally. So those traditional exercises are going to be pull-ups. There's going to be pull downs, and then you can combine them. So depending on fatigue level, and so like I mentioned before, you want to get a full range of motion. So what this means is getting a stretch all the way at the bottom of the exercise. Like too many people tend to use momentum when they're doing pull-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. And maybe you could do that initially, but if you want to get the best development, I think, from your lats, you need to do a full stretch at the bottom and when you're coming down, and then a big major contraction at the top to get those muscles to really activate. And that's really what's important.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do the same thing with your pull downs. It's the difference between a pull up and a pull down for people who aren't really aware of why they're different. The pull up, you're using your body weight, or you can even add weight. So, but you try to take your body weight and do a pull down with it. It's not very easy to do because the way the cables are. So, can you still do it? Yes, but probably not as effective as you can by doing your regular pull up method. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why we'll make that distinction there. All
Okay.
right. So I use different grips though when I'm doing my pull ups, even in the pull downs as well. So I like to do a palm overhand grip, which is kind of like this,
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and you do those fairly wide. And then you have a neutral grip, which is more like this. The palms are facing each other. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have underhand grip, also known as supinated grip. So you're gripping underhand, and that one tends
Okay.
to get the bicep as well. But they all have a different effect on the lats as you're coming up and down. And if you experiment with that, you'll notice that if you've been doing it, then you already know. But I
Okay.
just feel like that makes for a big difference. Um, and then since I'm strong on pull-up movements, I like to use a dip belt to add weight. So that's another way to add more intensity, make it tougher. So that's something you want to keep in mind when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing them. And
Mm-hmm.
then I like to do the pre-exhaust type of strategy, like I did for my chest. In the chest, I would do fly movements. And so my pre-exhaust strategy, and some people will kind of debate this kind of stuff. I don't really care, but they do work. Is I like to do
Right.
back based pullovers. You have a chest based pullover to stretch the chest, and you have a back based pullover. And the back based pullover, you keep your butt lower when you're doing the pullover, or if you have a pullover machine, then you're already covered. So I like to do those either with dumbbells, barbells, or a machine. And that
Okay.
really, you do that, you could just do those sets before you go do pull-ups or pull downs, or you can superset them. And
Hmm.
you'll really feel if you do them correctly, you'll feel your back the next day if you hit those the right way. So that's another way I kind of approach on the lats.
Armin, does it affect your strength as you're doing the pre-exhaust?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
So now it does, but it does it more in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
You will adapt and you'll get stronger, and that's part of the process. But you don't want to do pre-exhaust work every single time because it is pretty demanding and your recovery may not be as good. So I like to do that, every other week if I'm going to do kind of a pre-exhaust strategy or
Mm-hmm.
superset. So because both of these, you'll feel it and you'll know. So, but as you continue to alternate these things in and out, you'll see your strength get really good on your pull-ups, and you'll be able to do 20 before you know it. And that's when you want to start adding a dip belt. So, but you know, the strategy depends on how much you know. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're kind of new to pre-exhaust for your lats, then I would just focus on warming up your lats, with pull downs or whatever, even some regular pull ups. Then you go do the pullovers and just focus on that pullover in the beginning. So you feel the stretch, feel the shoulder blades moving and rotating. So, and this takes a little time. You can also do this, with cables as well,
Okay.
using rope. So, but again, do that. And then as you get good at it, then you'll be able to do the superset before you do the pull ups. And that's when you really, you really learn how good you're doing it.
I bet. I bet. Now, do you still do some of the row movements on the same day that you focus on your lats?
Yeah, you got to get full development. So after I've hammered my lats, pretty well, then I'll finish with some different row movements, which will usually be like seated cable rows, machine rows, or dumbbell rows, or some other
Mm-hmm.
isolation row movement. Because, um, you know, you're not gonna be as strong, obviously, because you're tired. So that's part of the finishing up with those, and doing those, you can still have good energy and get a good amount of reps. So with doing the row movements, though, you want to use different grips as well, just like with the pull ups and the pull downs. You had V bar handle, which is a pretty close grip. Then you have an overhand wide grip, which I like to help change it up, and then neutral, which is your similar to the V bar handle, except you have your hands a little further apart. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have underhand grips as well. And then you can also vary these from close to wide to medium. So they have a lot of handles these days that allow that to happen. And this is just a different way to change it up and keep it fresh. So I like to do that as
Mm-hmm.
well.
A lot of different things that you're
Yeah.
doing, a lot of good information. I think that's awesome. Let's talk about the row thickness strategy. How do you approach that?
All right. So this one it's really about going heavier
Hmm. Okay.
but being safe. So you're going to use typically compound movements with this. And so I like to start out with either a T-bar row. It can be padded. So if you have back problems, you can use a padded T-bar row.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to do T-bar row, bent rows with either using a barbell or dumbbells is really effective. But the key is to get the stretch at the bottom. You get that full range, not be too high up, which a lot of people do. I like to be more flat back or just slightly up from being flat back. I think you get a
Mm-hmm.
better stretch with that versus standing more upwards. That's just me. It's more old school as well, but I found it works really good. So you want to be focused on that and really squeezing, when you're contracting the muscles, when you bring your arms up, really squeezing that back and, get as much contraction as possible. And then keep the momentum to a minimum because that's not gonna do anything but affect your lower back. And like anything, when you're going heavy, I really recommend you wear a belt. I think that's really
Gotcha.
important. So now after I'm done with those movements, then I'll either do some cable, machine, or uh, dumbbell rows using more range of motion as possible, and again squeezing the back muscles to help take some of the pressure off the lower back. So these are just kind of finishing exercises after I do like the one or the other. I'm either going to do the T-bar row or the bent row, and just really focus on it and
Mm-hmm.
get as good of effect as I can. And then
Okay.
after I get done with that, then I'm going to finish up with a couple of pull down movements. And generally, I'll do pull downs on that day, but I also do pull ups depending on how I'm feeling. So if you're feeling good, do some pull up movements. If you're feeling a little fatigued because you hit it really hard, then do the pull downs with the cables, and hit that from just two different angles. Is what I like to do, just to kind of keep it all engaged.
Okay. What about deadlifts? Is that something that you do? And if you do them, when?
Yeah. So as you as you're getting more developed, then deadlifts are a good thing to incorporate. You just got to be careful with them. They can help with some thickness, but you don't necessarily have to do deadlifts. So I just want to make that distinction. Vince Guarana didn't do have anybody do deadlifts, and they built really good backs. But I think it is a good tool to use. So I prefer one of the things that I do with deadlifts versus a lot of other people that I see is I don't do those in the beginning. I like to do deadlifts based on some things learned from Mike Menser. Is I do deadlifts at the end. This way I've really exhausted all the back muscles. I mean, they're tired. Now, some people say, well, you're pretty fatigued. You may be more susceptible to injury. Well, not, if you're doing a good technique, no, you may not use as much weight, but you will get stronger. And I've had that happen. So I
Mm-hmm.
like to do my deadlifts, whether it's, regular deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts, whatever. I just prefer regular deadlift. I do it at the end of the back workout.
Hmm.
Because it's a compound movement. So anything that's still working for you, you're going to be calling it in to help get that weight up. So that's how I like to do it. And some people may disagree. Now, if you're new to deadlifts, then I would say you start out with that and learn the technique and get that really, nailed down, because that's really important to prevent injury.
Right.
And you got
Right.
to check your ego at the door as your fatigue sets in, because you got to be safe. Every time you get injured, then you can't train. So you got to keep all that in mind. But work on your form and technique. If you're new to it, probably do that first, and then do your other exercises after. But then once you get it down, then I would look to do it at the end, and it'll challenge you. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I also do. I don't really like to do deadlift work, after a leg day or close to a leg day, because the fatigue in my legs is really a factor. And some people may disagree with that, but I just try to give myself a couple more days if I'm going to do some deadlifts, so my legs are a little more recovered, so I can use them effectively with the lift. That's just my own personal things that I like to do. So, and
Gotcha.
also
Gotcha.
I like to do the deadlifts on that row day if I'm going to do them,
Mm-hmm. On the road
because
day. Okay.
yeah, I don't
Okay.
like doing them on the lat day, because the lat day is more of a secondary recovery day. That's why I do it that way too.
Okay. Well, you've got a lot of information here for us, and we've covered a lot, but I'm sure everybody's thinking about sets, reps, and rest periods. So why don't you get
Yeah.
into that a little bit?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so typically I like to, and we've talked about this in other shows, but for back, because it's such a complicated muscle group and it's a large muscle group, I really like to stay in that 8 to 12 rep range. I feel like that's really effective for that. I feel like you go with pretty heavy and still
Right.
get good reps from that. And so the other thing is when it comes to sets, typically 12 and no more than 20. I think when you
Okay.
start getting over 20, that you're just not getting much from it. You're pretty much shot, especially if you're hitting each set with a good amount of intensity. So,
Hmm.
but if you're doing some volume, then I really don't recommend more than 20 sets. And I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that anyways. Okay. Because you're trying to get your back training, depending if you're train it by itself, then I like to stay in that 40-minute range. But if I'm training with another muscle group, which I sometimes do with my chest, then I'll look to train it for about 20 minutes, and again at a pretty fast pace. So that's how I approach that. And for the rest, back is going to it's like legs. It uses a lot of oxygen, so I'll typically stay 30 to 45 seconds to kind of keep the pressure on the muscles and get as much blood flow into the area as possible because that's really going to help expand the capillaries and help with
Hmm.
the fascia expanding. So I just like keeping those rests, even though I'm still kind of out of breath. Yeah, you may be sacrificing a little bit of weight, but I've also
Right.
seen myself improve. So it's just a conditioning thing, in my opinion. So
Okay. Well, you didn't mention training your back with your chest. What
I
about other muscle groups?
All right. So the traditional, a long time ago, Mike Minzer had the back and biceps combination, and I think Lee LaBreda did that, and they really liked it. But I did that really religiously for a long time, and I just don't feel like that I got that much bicep development from it. My back workouts were good. I just think I got too fatigued from it for the biceps because they are used when you're doing your back work. So the strategy was, well, since they're already fatigued, a couple sets and that should help them. But I just didn't feel like it did that much for my bicep development. So I kind of got rid of that. But when I combine chest and back, I like to do supersetting because when you're done your back, you're resting, and so then you can do chest, and you didn't really use those muscles directly. If you did,
Hmm.
very minimal. And I found that to be very effective. I felt like my strength was good, and the other thing I really liked most of all was just getting that double pump because you're pushing and pulling, and so you got a lot of blood flowing back and forth, and that's another way to get good blood flow. So I thought
Hmm.
that worked well for me. And that's one of Arnold's strategies. I did a lot of Arnold stuff too in the past, but I really like if I'm going to do a little bit more trying to train the muscle groups more often in a week, then I like to do chest and back versus other combinations. I don't mind doing chest and triceps, but chest and back I've gotten to work pretty good. And I always start with the back exercise and then I go to chest because again, I want to make sure I'm really affecting the back. And plus my
Hmm.
chest seems to respond a lot better now. So, but if you feel like your back development is lacking, which I've done this in the past, then I would just focus on one day, like my legs, to train your back by itself because you know it, it can be pretty demanding on you, especially with the amount of oxygen you need to do the reps.
And then you either stretch in between sets or at the end of the workout, like we discussed last
Yeah,
week, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
depending on the timeline, if I can't do it in between, a lot of times I like to do it in between. But if I can't, then I
Hmm.
definitely do it at the end. It just you got that pump going, so you want to see if you can expand the area. So that's how I would approach it.
Well, Armin, a lot of darn good information here. And yeah, I'm sure everybody's appreciating it. But as we wrap up here, any final thoughts to kind of tie things up here?
Well, like anything, as you're training, you got to find different things to see if they'll stimulate and get the response you're looking for. And so I would give those strategies a try and then see how you respond. You got nothing to lose. But I know that the level of soreness I went through as I was learning these and working on them was pretty intense. Now, there's a lot of arguments saying, well, soreness doesn't mean you're getting development. But I don't know. I seemed like every time I got pretty sore, my body seemed to change more. So there's
Hmm.
another probably hot debate for people, but I don't like not feeling at least a tightness or mild level of soreness on a workout. If I don't feel that, I don't feel like I hit it hard enough. That's just me personally.
Hmm.
So that is what it is. But finally, don't feel like you need to do deadlifts to develop a great looking back. Okay, you can still get all those other muscles developed. Can it help? Sure, but at the same time, uh, you want to learn these other movements as well, really well, because they're going to do a lot of development because you're isolating those muscles. You get them to contract, and that always makes a difference. And that's why Vince probably did it the way he did it as well.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for all that great information, and stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition, and Arm and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Armin Eckelbarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills, and again, appreciate you joining us. A lot of you have heard of NSP Nutrition. It stands for Naturally Sourced Products, and
Yeah,
they've got a lot of great supplements on the website, but it's World Health Month, so they've got some deals on the website. So make sure you take advantage of that. And, a lot of great supplements. I saw that they have released, now available, Thyroid Complete, Armin.
yeah. I just actually got some yesterday when I got in. I had a client that needed some, so
Well, that's
but glad
awesome.
to see
So,
that.
well, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. They've got it right on the banner. It can help you in a lot of different ways, and it's a product that I know that NSP is very excited about. So I definitely wanted to let everybody know that, hey, it's available, and you can get it now.
Yeah, a
So
healthy thyroid is important for fat burning and important for energy, and that's why you need to make sure that gland is being well nourished. That's the key.
absolutely. All right, it's time for fan questions, and it's pretty interesting some of the questions we get. I have to kind of field them a little bit. Um, we answer all of them, so don't think that your question won't get answered. Sometimes I combine a couple of questions because they're
Okay.
similar.
All right.
But this question this week is from Nathan, and Nathan wrote in and said that he had tried the beef liver,
Okay.
and why he decided to get the NSP Nutrition beef liver is two reasons. One, he saw our show when we were talking about fasting
Yeah.
and how I helped supplement with my fasting when I did it. So he
hmm
wanted to try it because he didn't want to go with a cold turkey fast, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So, but he had a friend of his that had some beef liver that he used. So he thought, well, I'll save some money and I'll try his beef liver and do the fast. Well,
hmm
Nathan said it wrecked him. It was
Yeah.
just, it was awful. It was terrible. It ruined him for a while. So he waited a couple weeks. He went on the NSP Nutrition site and was very apprehensive about it after his experience, but went ahead and got the NSP Nutrition beef liver, tried the fast, and he said it didn't wreck my stomach. It worked great. And
Yeah.
he said, you guys were absolutely right. It stopped my cravings. And in the first 30 days, he fasted 1 day a week for
Oh
one
wow.
month. Nathan lost 22 pounds.
Nice. Yeah. Fasting does work really well, and
Yeah.
plus it clears out your system and can help generate stem cells. So it's a great thing to do. It's just funny though because when NSP ran out of beef liver and I had to buy the other brands. Yeah, I mean it was brutal on my stomach too. I was just like, I don't know how they sell this stuff, but apparently they do. I don't know.
Absolutely. So anyway, we appreciate all the feedback, Nathan, on the beef liver.
Yeah,
Another
great job.
validation, right? I
Well,
mean,
great
and
job with the weight.
yeah, excellent job losing weight. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Next question is from Mikey. Mikey. Okay. Mikey, Long Island, New York. Okay.
Okay.
Mikey's question is, Armin, in regards to your nutrition when you're working out, when we get this question from Mikey, he wants to get big. He's a smaller guy. He's only 5'9", so he wants a larger physique, right? He wants larger biceps. He wants the impressive kind of physique.
A lot of guys
not
do.
so much about the definition. He wants the size and the definition. Do you have any tips on a development of getting larger? And he's actually mentioned he feels he has a workout plan in place to get big, but there's a lot of supplements on the market, a lot of things to say weight gain or things like that right? Yeah. Is there anything that you could recommend that would help him get bigger other than weight training and nutrition? And that's what he's offering.
Is what you mean, supplement wise, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of the, back in the day, all these different weight gainers. Yeah, mostly what the weight gain products are is just carbohydrates. That's what they are. That's what helps you to gain weight. And then there'll be some fat in that, but it's just, having extra carbohydrates. So if he wants to gain weight, then, you want to have carbohydrates, especially after you train, throughout the day. I wouldn't have carbohydrates every 2 or 3 hours. I would have carbohydrates maybe twice a day where you're kind of loading up on them. That way you don't get, keep your insulin up all the time, and you're less likely to gain about excess body fat. Because, gaining weight is one thing, but, if you're going to look smooth and you don't have good shape, what's the difference? We all want to have, like I was the same way. I wanted to be big. I wanted definition because I saw Arnold on the magazine and it's like, wow, that looks pretty impressive. So, but then I was dieting all the time, and that doesn't work when you're trying to gain weight. So, with what I was doing anyway. So, if you want to gain weight, I would look at Vince Guarano's bulking program, and then he has nutrition with that. And it's simply going to be eating protein and fats. Protein and fats are what put muscle on, and you'll fill up, accordingly with that, and then use some carbohydrates to help reload the muscles and the liver to help with that weight gain. But if you see yourself starting to smoothen out, then you need to cut those carbohydrates back. I wouldn't do anything else on the fats and the proteins, but I would cut the carbohydrates back if you're smoothing out too much, because that can happen. And if you don't have if your abs big and round, I mean, that's not what you're looking for. So focus on the proteins and fats. Look at his Vince Guarano's bulk course. I think that he has nutrition as part of that. It's a 6-week course. Play with that, because I think that's what I would have done, and I wish I would have learned about that when I was younger, because it would help me a lot. Because I was doing as many dumb things you could do back in my time. But I just know for sure that protein and fats, you're going to put on quality muscle, because you need the fats for hormones, which is important. Hormones are what help your body to grow, and you need the protein, the amino acids to help with protein synthesis. You just use the carbohydrates to replenish the muscles and liver to have good energy. So I would do it that way. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hopefully that does help you, Mikey, and good luck to you on that. And last question, Harold. Harold is down in Hialeah, Florida, and Harold is a guy, an older gentleman. That's the way he described himself. But he said that, he had seen one of our shows was recommended by his grandson. So thank you, grandson, for recommending the show to Harold. We appreciate that. Yeah. Harold was checking out one of our shows, and we were talking about Joint Relief Pro compared to glucosamine chondroitin and the effects of that, right?
Yeah.
So Harold decided to go try some Joint Relief Pro.
Oh, okay.
And he got rid of everything else. He said, you know what? Let me try this. So he took the 3 capsules before the meal and started experiencing a lot of good feelings. The discomfort, a lot of the things that he was feeling were going away. And now he says, I'm out walking every day. I don't feel the pain that I used to. And he's feeling good about life again and wanted to thank us for talking about Joint Relief Pro.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, it's got the right ingredients to help with the joint area. You know, a lot of times with the joint area, you need to get the fluids flowing in there from the bursa sac. That's important. And then to get the inflammation down, and the combination of what's in that is going to help get that inflammation down so that it doesn't continuously stay there. So,
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good product. I don't have joint problems anymore, but I mean, if I ever had issues, I would go back to that. So only thing I would tell them to do is try some krill oil on top of that and should be good to go.
Okay. Well, Harold, thank you so much for your question. Everyone else, thank you so much for your questions. And we appreciate it if you would get those questions in. Helps our show and helps other people that watch it. And, Armin, we lean on our audience for that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, we really appreciate it. And hopefully it's getting you results and you can share this to other people, and, we can help each other out. So, that's what it's all about. And if we can help one more person get more out of life, then that's great.
And the best way to get that information to us is, hey, you can scan the QR codes and get the information to us that way.
Yep.
You can also comment on the YouTube channel on the current show that you're watching, or you can email us, and that's at support@nspnutrition.com. And we'll look forward to seeing your question or topic. And who knows, it may be used for an upcoming show. Now, that being said, we appreciate you joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Armin, thanks again for all your effort and hard work on everything you do to prepare the shows. A lot of good information. And join Armin and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget, you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.